I'm Jennifer with Soul Clarity Coaching, and this is another video from the series on dimensions. This is a little bit of a recap and going a little deeper to help firm up that understanding I've been giving you about what the different dimensions are. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with your friends. Okay, so I've already written out here the different dimensions, and I'm just going to do a quick review on them. And then we're going to dive into them a little bit more as we go on. So, of course, across the bottom I have the void. Then we have the first dimension, which is the awareness. That's the first spark of consciousness. And then we have from the awareness, then we get the polarity. I am this, you are that. And then we have a third dimension, which is the form. This is the densest part of energy. Then in the fourth dimension, we have the thought and emotion, energy and motion, and thought and consciousness coming together. Fifth dimension, we have information. Sixth dimension, we have control of the form or the experience. We start having control over the experience for having the third dimension. That's why we have this here. Dimension. Then I have seventh dimension. Seventh dimension is just where the laws of creation are. And then we have the eighth dimension, which is, again, the information. It's also where the Akashic Records are. All of the Akashic Records. Now we have ninth dimension, and this is, again, back into form. And it's the choice of form or the choice of timeline. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more in this video, what I mean by that. 11th dimension is the laws of the universe. And then the 11th dimension is the information. So it's again the understanding of everything below. And then finally we have the 12th dimension, which is what do I want to create now? And it starts the process again. This, what I've been explaining, has been very much about the human experience through this, okay? And now in this video, I think I'll touch a little bit on the 12th dimension, what that is referring to. So first I want to step back. And so that was the review of everything. Now, first I want to step up and get a little bit more into understanding what these experiences down here are. So awareness, first thing that happens is consciousness. Once you have consciousness, then eventually as consciousness raises, you start having energy. Through consciousness, energy is created. As consciousness rises through the dimensions, energy is given into more form, right? Or it's increased in vibration. So the first dimension is actually also the lowest vibration, but because of the nature of the first dimension, the fact that it just is a dot and there's nothing else to it, there's nothing relativity to it, it doesn't really have what we would consider as form, right? It's not until it's actually the combination of the second dimension, which is the polarity, I am this, not that, combined in unison with the fourth dimension, which is the conscious understanding, choosing creating the vibration of the energy in motion that actually creates a form. So I'm describing all this on a very linear way in order for our brains to better understand it, but it's not actually on a linear progression. It's more of a well, it's the tree of life shape. It's the sacred geometry shapes that actually create the third form. So it is by the nature of polarity, this and that, the scale in between, one extreme to the other extreme of the same concept. It's that polarity, opposite points, that creates a foundation in which emotion and thought flows. It is that conscious awareness putting energy in motion that creates the third dimensional form. And at third dimension, that is the lowest density. So the slowest movement of energy is what that actually is, as energy in motion, right? It's the slowest movement of energy is what creates that. Now here's the ironic twist. Not only is it the slowest density of energy, it is also the fastest density of energy. So energy is actually moving at its fastest as well as at its slowest. It's confusing, very. It is part of the relativity of polarity. It takes both in order to create form. It takes the fact that we have molecules moving so rapidly that they appear to come together as one in a slower vibration of the overall. So it's the polarity of, so it's the fourth dimension makes it move faster, the energy move faster, but because of the polarity scale, it actually it goes slower. So that's where it is both fast and slow at the same point, which is what creates the third dimensional form. I'm not going to go too more into that because it's really, you're getting way too much into science if you were that interested in science, so I'll explain that. But for our purposes today, we don't need to go deeper than just the basic understanding of that. So that is why form is, it's actually held between the fourth dimension and the second dimension. That's the first thing I wanted to clear up about that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is how these kind of things work. So why is the Akashic Records held at the 8th dimension, and why is the choice of form and timeline held at the 9th? All right. So what is the best way to explain this? So this experience, all here, is from a single point of view. When we are, so in third dimensional form, we really don't have, we are following along our understandings, because once we get into the information level of the fifth dimension and we understand how all this works, we can start thinking outside of that box of the fourth dimension, and we can start thinking of, well, what would happen? We can start seeing what would happen if I took a different action. That's what is moving into the sixth dimension, right? We start going, well, okay, I made this choice and walked down that path. If I made this choice, I'd walk through another path. Different things would have happened. If I could go back in time and choose differently, I would end up in a different place today. That is, understanding comes at the fifth dimension. That is the ability to read the different timelines that are happening, the different experiences that are happening. When we're at the third and fourth dimensional level of consciousness, we actually don't have the ability to really think in terms of, until we start getting more in the higher levels of the fourth dimension, then we can start thinking in that term, but really we don't think a lot at third dimension in terms of, if I had made a different choice, my life would be different now. And we don't think in advance of our choices either. So we kind of just do. We're on the survival path. We're just doing and moving forward. But as fifth dimensional consciousness raises, we start to be able to go, what should I do? If I do choice A, I end up with this result. If I take choice B, I end up with that result. That's part of this collective multi-dimensional existence. Okay? And so that's what actually creates a timeline, is those choices. So that's where the choices that we take from here. So that is where, as we raise our consciousness, we can see what the different choices would cause in reaction, which actually causes timelines. As we learn to choose our experience by understanding the laws of creation, which are, govern what this combination of second, 3D, and 4D, it governs how this works. Or explains it. As we learn what those laws are, how this works, we can actually start choosing different experiences. But from this level, we can start making choices of our vibration of thought to change the situations that we're currently in. So this is where you get affirmations and the vibration that you're putting out will attract what you want. So if you want to go towards your goal, you need to change your vibration so that you align with your goal. You need to change who you are to align with the person that's living the achievement of your goal. That's when we start applying that kind of knowledge and learning that. But there is a limitation as to how much bandwidth there is that we can actually make those changes. So from this dimension here, understanding, where I take the information and I start controlling the form through the laws that govern this, as I go through that process, there's a limitation on the bandwidth of how much change in my timeline I can actually make. For instance, I cannot go back in time and choose different parents from that perspective. I can choose whether I run away as a teenager or not, but I can't actually choose the biology of which parents I was born to, or born from. So there is a limitation on how much of the bandwidth we have. Now, in another timeline, this form that I identify as me actually was having an experience where there was different parents, or maybe one of our parents, maybe our parents divorced. And I grew up with 2 different parental households. Those are things that I can't change in my form at this level of consciousness. Okay? Well, what now, as I becoming up into the 8th dimension in consciousness, now I have the ability to look down at this here, and I can imagine what the difference would be. I can consciously tap into my imagination and say, oh, I can imagine what it would have been like. I can start thinking about that. I can even go into the Akashic Records and I can actually view a little deeper into these timelines as to what would have been. Okay? This is part of, and the timelines, time is a concept that creates a understanding for this experience at the 3rd dimension. And it's created at this dimension. Once we get up into these, the timeline starts to change. It starts to be, well, actually, really when you get up here, this is where, so at 8th dimension, you can view down and see how this experience would have unfolded under different conditions. And that's actually kind of different, kind of like what we're doing when we look at different past lives. They are different experiences that this awareness has, right, at or in 3rd dimensional form, which is held at a 4D material. Okay, so from up in the 8th dimension, we can actually view this awareness's experience across multiple timelines. Hope that makes an understanding. But again, we can view them, but we can't physically change them. We can view them, we can choose to understand them and to give us greater understanding of the laws of creation and how they apply to our form, but we can't change them. We can pull out trauma, we can pull out emotions and everything on timelines that may be affecting this form because we exist on multiple at the same time. And there can be an overlap. There is a biology factor that comes in here that is memories held in your biology can be read through the Akash because all the information is there, right? But we can't change it. So when we heal, and we go back and we heal in the Akash, there's a couple things that we're doing. What we're actually doing is pulling out the any stuck energy that is affecting the form. And stuck energy can come from the biology, and it can also come from the conscious awareness's experience across multiple different timelines. And that's the difference between genetic DNA trauma and soul trauma. Right? Soul trauma, we refer to that as usually awareness, memory. But again, these are all viewed at the Akashic Records. As we expand our consciousness and understand these applications, we can view it and because at information we can start understanding start understanding and seeing what these different timelines and how they can affect and overlap us, which is the greater collection. It is not until the 9th dimensional awareness that we can actually choose which of those timelines this 3rd dimensional form is actually going to experience. That is why it is only the 9th dimensional aspect of ourselves, or 9th dimensional beings, and I'll get into that in a different video. But for now, I'll just say that's where the Akashic Record Guides exist. We talked about it already. They are capable of changing those timelines for the ones that are closest enough in the awareness that it is affecting the current experience that you're working with in this timeline. So timelines all, they spider out like a web. So if you start at one point of awareness and you start branching out, and it gets more and more and more complicated as it goes out based on what choices the awareness makes, you consciously make. So the more choices you make, the more timeline separations there are. So big choices create bigger variance between the timeline you're on and that timeline that was the other choice. So that branching of polarities is really the choice, right? Because again, it all boils down to polarity and the control of thought controlling the energy and motion. And so, for instance, if I make a decision in my life that I am going to move to Canada. So if I made a choice that I was going to move to Ontario in my 20s, before I met my husband, there is an entire different life in that decision that would unfold from that point on. And the more my life carries on, so the older I get, so at 20 years old, I made a choice to move to Ontario. And in another timeline, so from this point, one of me created a separate timeline. One moved to Ontario, the other one stayed in BC. So now there's two timelines. One that is me at 20 in BC, staying in BC, and one that at 20 moved to Ontario. What unfolded from that point, so now roll ahead many decades, a number of decades, and my life that unfolded as the person who lived in BC. So my BC life went on. I met my husband. We started a business together. We bought a house together. We had children together. I ended up staying home with the kids. I went through certain experiences in my life that led me down the path to doing what I do right now. And here I am, talking to you on this timeline. The other Jennifer that made the choice to move to Ottawa, she moved to Ottawa. She didn't meet this husband. Maybe she met a different man, and they got married. Maybe they had 3 children instead of 2 children. Maybe they ended up divorcing. Maybe they ended up making choices, maybe his career, because it was in Ottawa, a far bigger influence of the East. Maybe I met somebody that was from United States, and we moved down to the United States. And then I ended up in New York. So now we're multiple decades later, and you have two different timelines. In one timeline, I'm now living in New York, I've got 3 children, and I'm divorced. In this timeline, I'm living in BC, which is very different than New York. And I am still married. I've been married for 25 years. And I have 2 children. And I live in a small coffee farm. And I'm talking to you. See how different those 2 timelines are? Very, very different. All branching out from that one decision that I made at the age of 20 of whether or not I wanted to move to Ontario or stay in BC. So you can see how timelines branch out. So from the Akashic Records, all information, I can view all the details of both those timelines if I want. Because the other information is there. But I can't make any changes. They are too far apart. Okay? That's why I say that at Akashic Records, this is why I say timelines end at this point. Because the next dimensional shift, where we start holding form and taking choices of our form, taking control, conscious awareness of how we are holding form from the 9th dimensional aspect of how we hold form, we are now capable of choosing which timeline. So from the 9th dimension, I can choose the other timeline. I can go all the way back and choose differently. I can make that adjustment into time. So that's part of what we are learning at this with the laws of the universe, is how does that affect and how does that govern those experiences? How is that choice governed by the basic laws of the universe? And understanding how all these different timelines take place and how they affect the overall laws of the universe and the whole entire collective of all the timelines, how that all comes together is what we're understanding up here. We then take all that information of all those different timelines and experiences and everything that has gone on from this point of conscious awareness, and we then, in the 12th dimensional aspect, we start making decisions as to how are we going to experience all of this? What are we going to create from that? So think of it like this way, that this is the human experience that you're on. There's multiple timelines of what you're experiencing. And from this 12th dimensional point, you have all the information of how each one of those timelines affects each other and the environment and comes together to affect the entire Earth and the Earth within its solar system, within its galaxy. That is where you go to the 12th dimension. That's the level of creation. That's where we start moving out. So now, instead of this being a human consciousness of awareness, now you're taking that human consciousness that is raised to this greater understanding and you're applying it to a bigger awareness in understanding itself through process, which is what Earth is doing. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys on that one. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. So, all of this information up until the 8th dimension all applies to the 3rd dimensional form. It's all an expansion of experiencing the 3rd dimension. So when we talk about ascending, when we talk about spiritual awakening, so here's the difference. Spiritual awakening is when our consciousness goes up. Ascension is when our body, our form, we exercise greater understanding of how to choose the experience of our form. That's ascension. we start looking at how our form affects the rest of the earth and our environments. We expand how we are interacting. And it's a very physical thing. Now, when we talk about unlocking soul codes, what we are doing is activating or changing. So we're going up into here, we're viewing information, right? We're viewing the information. But we're asking our higher dimensional self, the Akashic Record Guides, to change the form, the physical body, in order to align it with what we're trying to create with it. Okay? We're asking this physical form to hold more conscious awareness. Okay? That's physical evolution. So what's happening right now on the planet, so our consciousness has really grown in understanding. But our physical bodies actually have to upgrade to keep up with it. So that is why so many people who are moving up and are starting to work in these higher dimensional aspects with our form are also experiencing ascension symptoms. This is where we can get very tired, we can get very achy and sore, we can have lots of changes in our diet, we can have food cravings, we can have food rejections, we can have allergic reactions, extra sensitivity, we can have thinking, foggy brain, that kind of thing. This is why a lot of our children especially, they are already coming into this form with a higher awareness. So they are transforming their genetics, so they tend to be more tired. They tend to be more sensitive because they are more consciously aware of how the emotions and thoughts, not only of their own body is acting, but also of the environment around them. They have more of the energy dynamics that are going on with the energy around them because they are in greater understood consciousness. And this process of upgrading our third dimensional form, expanding the third dimensional form so that we can actually hold it at the higher vibration of the sixth dimension, is literally a physical experience. So if you're wondering why you're having such weird, one of the things I'm having is a lot of ear issues. I'm also having sight issues. I'm having hearing issues. I'm having lots of physical things that are coming up to the surface because misalignments in behaviors at these lower vibrations now have to be corrected in order for the form to hold more energy. And that's the ascension process. I hope that made sense. I don't want to explain anything further in this video. I guess I'll just end it with just maybe a couple tips to help you with the physical, understanding the physical ascension. People who are spiritual people who are on the front lines of this process. So not all of humanity progresses through this at the same pace, at the same time. And so pretty much I can tell you that if you're watching this, you're one of the people that are at the front end of the way. So think of it as a triangle, a peak, a pyramid. Here, I want to do it on there. Just think of it as an ascension pyramid up there. The masses are at a lower vibration, and then you have a smaller group that is leading the way through this process. Okay? If you're watching this video, you're probably one of the ones that are the leading your way through this process, which means you're breaking new ground for others to follow. You're leading the path for others to follow. And what happens is the people that are at the front, the star seeds, they've come into this world at a higher vibrational awareness, their consciousness. And so a lot of us actually have these higher conscious awarenesses that are up in here. Some of them are quite high. And so the disconnect, the stretch from their human biology and their conscious awareness is further apart. The further that stretch apart of your consciousness is, the more ascension symptoms you're going to experience. The closer your awareness is to where your form is vibrating, the easier and healthier and more, think of it, your energy is more collected into a space so you can actually feel, ironically, feel like that. Right? And that's just the way it is. So as your body, as you embrace the changes that bring your body, your form, up into alignment with where your awareness is, so the more that you learn how to control your form, your experience, using the laws of creation, and resolving unfinished business from the lower conscious awareness, which is feeling in the Akashic Records. The more you do that, the more this comes into alignment, the better you will feel, the better you'll be able to manipulate and move energy and create in your own mind. So it's that stretch that causes the discomfort, and you can't shrink your awareness. Once you're aware of something, you can't shrink it. All you can do is adjust your form by applying the laws of creation to how you're experiencing your form, which will raise the ability of your form to hold the energy consciousness of that. Okay. I'm going to leave it with that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gives you a better understanding of everything I've explained in the previous two videos. They kind of all, there's 3 videos here that all kind of go together in explaining these dimensions, and I hope you've enjoyed them. I am going to carry on in explaining some of this stuff. So I think next I will probably, my next video I will start breaking down what are the different beings that exist within these different dimensions and how this actually interplays with what's going on. So start breaking it down further. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Maybe you have a totally different perspective. Hey, I'm open to hearing it, because this is what I've been shown, this is what I've been understanding. But my experience and your experience do not have to be the same. So I'm always open to hearing. Thank you very much, and love you all. Mwah! And I'll see you in the next video.